on a book on where precisely the tefillin should be placed on the head and on the arm. This was a very pious man concerned for the minutiae of halacha. And he would be asked, Rav Kook, what are you dancing with those who are not Orthodox? And he said, in so many ways, over and over again, I may be their Rebbe, but I am their student. We in the Orthodox community have so much to learn from these individuals. In the end, it's not them and us, it's we. Because Rav Kook in his time looked out there and he saw that the land was primarily not being built by religious Zionists. It was being built by those who rejected Zionism, religiosity, and this is what he writes in our Palei Torah. Yitukan hanefesh. When I read this, my body shakes. This is unbelievable stuff. It's so moving. This is my rabbit. Yitukan hanefesh shel hayireim shomrei haTorah al yidei shleimut hanefesh shel haposhim. The souls of the observant of Torah will be perfected through the wholeness of the souls of the sinners. He uses the word sinners. And what he meant was by those who may not be keeping Shabbat. So today I would not use, I'll let God decide who's a sinner and who's not. So Rav Kook was carefully couching it. But look what he writes. He writes that those who are Shomrei Torah, the raising of my voice, I can't help myself. This stuff is so moving. And he lays out what we can learn from that community. He writes, B'yachas l'inyanei haklal, concerning matters of all Jews. He looked at the Orthodox community and he found it was too narrow. They were speaking to themselves. A little bit of that is happening today. And he said we have much to learn from the kibbutzniks because when they're out there and defending Israel, fighting for Israel, they were speaking for all Jews. And then he says, Vatikvot hagashmiot, and their physical aspirations. Because he looked at the Orthodox community and saw that it was in the world of the Bet Midrash, of Torah, but it wasn't defending the land. He saw a split between spirituality and physicality. And he said, we can learn from that community the importance of physicality. You know, at yeshiva, if I see a student walking out of Chovevei Torah, bent over, carrying 20 svarim, I sometimes feel I just want to hit that student on the back, very softly and gently, and say, Seid nicht, this is not very nice, Seid nicht auf a knetchte Yeshiva-Bacher. Don't be so bent over as a Yeshiva-Bacher. That's not the goal of Torah. The Torah is not meant to sap your strength. The Torah is meant to encourage you. The Torah is meant to inspire you. Look up. The goal of Torah is not that we leave the earth for heaven. The goal of the Torah is that we connect earth and heaven. That we bring heaven down to earth and we lift earth a little bit up to heaven. That's why Rav Kook, now we take it for granted. He was the one who introduced the concept of the Hester Yeshiva. That's Rav Kook. He said you can study Torah, and in one hand you can carry a Gemara, and in the other hand, if necessary, you can carry a gun. And then he says, V'hargasha enoshit, and universal sensibility. Because it's so often the case that the Orthodox community has a narrow concern only for the Jewish community. It doesn't understand its larger responsibility, in fact, to the larger world. And that's a complicated balance. The balance and the tension between particularism and universalism. My position is that being a strong particularist does not contradict universal consciousness, but it is a prerequisite to it. But what Rav Kook is saying, and he's writing in the 20s, we have much to learn. We have much to learn from each other. Much to learn from each other. Now, maybe what we have to learn from each other 50 years and 60 years and 70 years and 80 years later may be different, but the principle remains in place. Now, I believe that this attitude towards the holiness of those who are Jewish, Jews across the board, may go some distance in explaining modern Orthodoxy's inclusive position concerning the homosexual community. Now, modern Orthodoxy and your rabbi affirms the Torah prohibition. We know what the Torah says about homosexuality. But I would insist, as a modern Orthodox rabbi, that gay people receive and be accepted in the full spirit of Chaviv Adam Shenivra B'Tzelem Elokim. Beloved is every human being for having been created in the image of God. And I am very, very proud of the proclamation that was primarily penned by Rabbi Nati Helfgott, one of the Rabbeim on Yeshivat Chovevei, from Yeshivat Chovevei Torah. That proclamation emerged after there was a symposium downtown held in Yeshiva University, outside of their Bet Midrash, which was roundly criticized by the Rabbi, that you can't even have an open symposium. You can't hear the words and the struggles of those from within our own community, many within the Orthodox community who have chosen this lifestyle. And in response to that, Rev Nati penned a very, very carefully worded statement on the gay community, balancing the affirmation of the Torah prohibition with the responsibility to give dignity to every human being. And I encourage you, you can look for that proclamation on your internet and read it and study it, and you'll see this extraordinary balance. There is, having spoken about Torah Yisrael and Am Yisrael, I want to now talk about Eretz Yisrael, because we also part with the Orthodox Rite on the religious meaning of the modern state of Israel. For the Orthodox Rite, the state of Israel has no religious significance because the Messiah has not come and will not come until God wills it. Modern Orthodoxy insists that the establishment of the state of Israel has and still has enormous religious significance, wherein human beings play an active role in bringing about redemption. Here, modern Orthodoxy merges with religious Zionism. For modern Orthodoxy, Israel is not only a place of political refuge, not only a place where more mitzvot can be performed, not only a place where there is far less intermarriage and assimilation, rather it is the only place where the national destiny of the Jewish people can potentially be carried out. In the diaspora, we are not in control. Only in Israel do we have the political sovereignty and judicial autonomy to become an Or LaGoyim, a light to the world, to establish a just society from which other nations can learn the basic ethical ideals of Torah. This doesn't say that the Orthodox Rite does not support Israel. As a matter of fact, I think one of the ways that the Orthodox Rite has learnt from the modern Orthodox community is to show support with Israel. But their support has to do with the reality that there are millions of Jews living in Israel. It has nothing to do with an understanding that the establishment of the modern state of Israel has some religious significance. It is Reshit Smichat Gulatenu, or it is Shetiyeh Reshit Smichat Gulatenu. There is one other important distinction between modern Orthodoxy and the Orthodox Rite relative to the state of Israel. Modern Orthodoxy views the government of Israel as having religious significance, notwithstanding the fact that its leaders are not halachically observant. This view emerges again from the writings of Rav Kook. He maintains that in the absence of the halachic melech, the Jewish king, The powers of the government revert to the people, who in turn have the authority to invest these power in whomever they choose. The leaders of their choice then have the status of Malchut Yisrael, the kingdom of Israel. From this perspective, the government of Israel has religious value and religious meaning. It follows, therefore, that the government has the status of Malchut. An individual has the right to disagree with government policy, but can never regard those policies as being null and void. Dissent is acceptable. Delegitimization is not. Take a look at number 6 again from the writings of Rav Kook. He writes, "Shebizman she'ein melech, kevan shemishpetei hamlucha hem gam kein ma shenogea lematzav haklali shel ha'uma, chozrim ele hazkuyot shel hamishpatim liyad ha'uma haklala, uviyichud yireh shegam kol shofet shekam b'Yisrael din melech yesh lo, le'inyan kama mishpetei hamlucha, uviyichud lema shenogea lehanagat haklal." Lainey, can you give it to me in the English, number 6?
When there is no king, since the laws of the kingdom are also relevant to the condition of the people, the rights of implementation of the laws revert to the people in their collectivity, and in particular it appears that every ruler that arises in Israel has the law of king regarding several aspects of kingdom, and specifically to that which relates to the welfare of the people.
Now this is extraordinary. When the prime minister was tragically assassinated in what I believe was the greatest Chilul Hashem ever in all of Jewish history, from my perspective, the prime minister was assassinated. But from a religio-spiritual perspective, that was an attack against what biblically is called Malchut Yisrael. Rav Kook is really saying that democracy and this whole balance between a Jewish state and a democratic state, that has something to do with the biblical understanding of Malchut Yisrael. And so we've touched upon Torat Yisrael and Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, and I just want to add some other areas of distinction. I want to talk for a moment about pluralism. The Orthodox Rite avoids all contact with the non-Orthodox, avoids all contact, so as not to give non-Orthodoxy legitimacy. There are countless number of Orthodox rabbinic groups who will never ever sit with a non-Orthodox rabbi. While not accepting the position of the conservative and reform movements on halakha, because you must understand, when I talk about pluralism, that doesn't mean that I am one and that I am in agreement with my conservative and reform colleagues on every issue. I disagree with them on many issues, and I'm in very good company.